First refinance taking most of your money back out. Second refinance thrown off another pot to buy and all the rent and all the capital. Oh, Jesus. This is why we do this.
Hold on, housekeeping.
Are we not going to say this right at the beginning?
Ding some bells.
Ding some bells,
press
subscribe,
like.
thingy-a-bob, and we really appreciate it. The numbers are growing every week. Any questions you got, put them in the description. Who's doing the introduction this week?
Oh, do you want to do it this week?
Oh, hello and welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to He Asks Me, Adam Asks Jess. It's questions that you've put to the YouTube channel. You can write one in the bottom of the description right now if you want to. Any other way, comes in on social media. However we hear the question, Adam collates them. And there's usually some good themes in there, questions that keep getting asked often, regularly. Adam puts them to me and I give my best shot at answering them.
Yeah. All right. So this one's come from a couple of potential clients, actually, not clients, a couple of guys that we've met on one of our discovery calls. And they suggested that the areas where we buy aren't going to see any real capital growth. They also were concerned that if they had to sell them at some point in the future, it would be difficult. Now, these two guys happen to be based in London. They're experienced property investors and developers too, but they've only really, from what I could gather, done it in London.
Buy to keep or buy to sell?
I think a bit of both, mainly
Right.
buy to sell, I think.
Right.
But so the question this week is there capital growth in our areas?
So let's talk about where our areas are to start off with. So then we don't buy anything particularly down south.
No.
We are
Mainly north.
mainly up north. I mean,
Midlands and the East Midlands and
saying
the
up
north.
north is pretty
Yeah.
ridiculous because
Yeah,
there's
of
people
course.
in Aberdeen saying that's not north. But north of
North
Watford
of
Gap,
Nottingham. Yeah, north of Nottingham.
north of Nottingham for sure. Okay. So is there any capital? We've kind of talked about this before. I'm sure we have.
We have, but it comes up periodically. Look, this question is not new. People have been asking us this since we were buying in parts of Nottingham, which we no longer buying because it's too expensive and we don't get the returns there anymore. So we know there's capital growth because we've been pushed out of areas because the properties have got too expensive. But it's a legitimate question for someone who's miles away
Yep.
and doesn't have the knowledge, the local knowledge, the street knowledge of those areas. I wouldn't know the price of anything in London.
Can I say one thing that's not the answer, but it's kind of everybody that listening to this, maybe you're thinking, I've heard these guys talk about the kind of houses that they buy. They're not for me because, and maybe you said London guy. Let's call them London guy. You know who you are. Maybe you actually don't live in London, but you've got a different view of the world, a different expectation. Yes, stuff different. And well, actually, have I ever told my Ronnie Scott story on the camera? Have I done that?
Maybe.
I've
It's
told
funny,
you
man.
it. I know
Tell
that.
it.
Yeah.
It's,
So
it's kind of,
it's that.
Yeah, it is that.
Yeah.
It's
So
that.
this isn't the answer, but just check that this isn't you. I was in a jazz club and
Ronnie Scott's.
Ronnie Scott's, yeah, and
Nice.
it was just
Standard Tuesday night out for you, wasn't it?
yeah. There's different chairs, there's different seats, and like if you're one of the nicer seats, I suppose it's. I was sat next to somebody who was in a lesser seat, and I was in a nicer seat, and he leant over, and I don't know what, but the conversation got going somehow. And he'd clearly worked out somehow. He said, "You're a successful fella." That was like, there you go. And I don't know quite how he'd worked that one out, but I just had a chat with him for 5 minutes. And then he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Nottingham." I haven't got a thick Nottingham accent because I'm a bit of a mongrel really. I'm from all over. So that surprised him. And his actual words were, "How do you make money up there?" As in, he didn't mean, "What do you do for a living?" He meant, "Oh my God, you live up north. How does anything ever get done? How do you make money?" It was that. It was like what? People make a good... He'd worked out, I make a good living. And he said, "Oh, how do you manage to make a good living up north? Because, basically all the opportunities down here, it's all there. This is all we're..."
Yeah.
Just check you're not suffering from that. A load of money up north. I mean, it is... Just check you're not suffering from that. That guy was flabbergasted that anybody lived, worked, or made much more than minimum wage above Watford Gap. So check you're not suffering from that. Then I think we're going to talk about the kind of areas where we buy. Some of the misconceptions. It's not just about capital growth. I'm going to come on to capital growth, which is the answer to the question. But there's other things that filter in there as well, which I had a question on YouTube. If you go back to 1 or 2 videos ago, somebody on the YouTube channel said, "I'm out of buy-to-let. It's a shame or it's a problem to me when the only place I can get the right yields are the places where unemployment is going to be high."
Unemployment's
Unemployment's going to get high. So basically, he's talking about buying in the grotty areas. That's his view, and in those areas, unemployment's going to be high, and that's a problem. So, I did write back, and I just thought, well, first of all, I don't think unemployment's a problem for anybody at the moment in this country. That's not a problem. We've got low unemployment means I can't recruit 3 more people out there on the main desk. But let's say unemployment becomes a problem, and actually over the next couple of years it might become a problem. We're encouraging landlords right now to get rent and legal insurance and all those kind of things because it's important. Who's more likely to get let go, middle manager or hourly paid?
True.
So think about that. I don't know the answer to that statistically, by the way, but I would say that middle management sometimes, whereas the hourly paid worker that's doing something on the shop floor just needs to get done. I know when productivity goes up and down, and I know it can change. But if that person that gets hourly paid does get let go, sadly, and that might happen in a situation, whose wage can more easily be replaced by universal credit, housing benefit?
Either way, that comment was still stereotyping.
It's also true. It's also not true. Exactly, that's the thing. The grotty areas, the small, they're not grotty. This is where 65% of the UK live. Bad management is when you get bad tenants not paying, arrears problems, tenancy problems.
And usually the house was bad to begin with.
Correct. And all of those things can just as easily happen in a more expensive house as a lower house. You can just manage them. So that is not a thing. So check you're not suffering from my guy and Ronnie Scott's London syndrome. Check you're not suffering from this idea that the place where 65% of the UK live is not a nice place to live. It's fine. It's absolutely. We get around here. So people say, "Oh, I thought it was rough around here." No, who told you it was rough? I just assumed it. So check you're not going with that. And then here's the next thing, and it's the answer to the question. I believe that it's exactly the opposite. I happen to know you've got a little. You got a little bit of a prop for this one.
It's like Blue Peter.
Here's what I'm going to do. So you don't need to bring it out yet, but I know that's coming. I'm going to talk to him about this one because there are dozens and dozens and dozens, but this one is one that Adam owns, and he's printed out the things recently. I've started doing the history of what we bought it for, what it's worth now, and all those things. I've started doing that on every house that I do. Honestly, I didn't used to do it before. Didn't used to check in very regularly. Just it kind of happens in the background. But Adam's making us, so we can talk about it on videos, what is actually happening in a house that we buy, in the areas we buy, over the first 5 years, and then the next 5 years, and then onwards. So people, landlords, you might be one of them, are put off from buying the kind of houses we buy for all those stereotype reasons, and then also they think that cheap house can never go up in value. It's exactly the opposite. We've been talking about this, like Adam says, for years and years, like a decade, to multiple different landlords throughout that time, and we've left some behind if they didn't get it. Some have got it, some have got it later. Some of them have got it and look back. They got it when they look back at the stuff they didn't buy. How many times do you see a landlord 2 years later than the first time? I go, oh my God, I didn't realise I should have bought those. Now where's next? Where's the next area?
Happens all the time.
All the time. A house that's bought for anywhere 50, 60, 70, 80,000 pounds, that amount of money should not be that cheap. Nowhere in the UK should it be that cheap. It costs more money to build the house than that. They pop up, we could sometimes call them a firecracker, because you don't know quite when it'll happen. Will it happen next year, 18 months later, 24 months later? But they go. And we've never had a house that we bought for that kind of money that hasn't doubled in value in 5 years. And that's better than anything else. The guy down in London, you're not going to get your £500,000 house to go to £1 million in 5 years. Not going to happen. The best capital growth happens in the areas that people are actually turned off from. It's completely the opposite way to what people think.
Sure.
My answer is, not only will they go up in value, yes, but they go up better. Now, it's also true that you can't expect it to keep doubling in value every 5 years, probably every 10.
Keep going up though.
They do keep going up, absolutely. Capital growth happens exactly the same over the long period, long term. At the same percentage of the market. It's almost like once it pops, once the firecracker goes off, it then joins the general market and grows at the same time.
These places, they're still in reasonably nice areas. They're close to schools and shops and bus routes and town cities. They're not stuck out in the middle of nowhere. They're normal houses where normal people live.
Yeah. That was one of the other things. Could I ever sell it as well? Who would ever want to buy these houses?
You only have to look at parts of London where friends of mine live. That 20 years ago, people in London would go, oh God, I don't want to live there.
Yeah. I think if you are the kind of person that's got £500,000 sat in your back pocket and you are put off by these areas, you're actually the kind of person that could benefit the most from these kind of areas. If you just get it and you look at it and go, oh yeah, like buying one £500,000 house in London versus buying 4-5 houses up north. I mean, that's, you've got to be loads more specific than that, but you know what I mean. Yeah. You're going to be way better off buying those.
Definitely.
And you are capable of doing that. You're able to do it. You've got that money in your back pocket. Probably the equity has been saved over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years in London. It's been made. Now redeploy it up north, and that's the win-win situation. Definitely, yeah.
Refurb, refinance, pull most of your money back out.
Should we show people how it works? Because I think we can talk about it forever. But let's give you a real life example. So, what we're going to do,
I've done, right, is I've printed off a screenshot from Rightmove Plus, the surveyor back-end tool of Rightmove.
What I'm going to do now is, while we're talking, I'll put this up on the screen. So
like
that, but we're going to put the colour one on there. So while we're talking, it'll just have that so you can see it. That'll be the magic of the edit. Yeah.
And so what this shows you now is that I bought this house on the 19th of May 2017. It's stamped HMLR, Land Registry, for 85k.
£85,000 in 19th of May 2017, yeah. Less than the previous purchaser had bought it for.
Exactly. And, well, actually, it hadn't been bought for years. It had been going through with someone else. It had mortgage surveyed 85. It fell out. I went in and bought it.
Yeah, I see it.
Then I did some work on it. I renovated it and refinanced it later that year, and it was valued at 115. And then I've refinanced it again this year because the 5-year fix is up, and actually it was refinanced in the summer at 160. So for all intents and purposes, it's doubled in value. You know, that's amazing. Now, when we were buying this house, when I bought this house, we were still buying property in Nottingham. It was becoming a bit more tricky in the years after that, but people would still say, I don't know about Nottingham. I don't know if it's got good capital growth. Are you going to get good? All the things that people say about every area we've ever bought in, and I think that there is common for the majority of all the properties we've ever bought.
Well, that's standard numbers. Really standard. I mean, percentage-wise, they'll stay the same. The numbers could change.
And I'm pretty certain our buyer at the time told me I'd overpaid by £5 grand.
Well, I bought one on the same street.
You did,
Just
actually.
bring it around a minute. I bought one on the same street for 80 grand, didn't I? And I remember thinking,
well done, yeah.
So you as a buyer, as a landlord investing, that it's a universal feeling. Oh, I just paid a little bit too much. But 5 years later down the line, and how many more of those would you have bought?
Back then, I spent, I think, 13-14 grand renovating it. Obviously, I would have to pay a lot more to renovate it now because the prices have changed and everything. But
so, how many of those deals would you want to do? I'm going to pick up on something else because London guy, the I don't know, your client was in London. The person who's put the question to us, yeah. But you said he was a developer, so it was buy. We don't know buy to sell or buy to keep. So let's talk about.
I wouldn't focus on him because he's not the only person who's ever said that.
I know. But I'm just picking up on that one thing that. It's a separate but related point. This, and I'll put it back up on the screen again. So let's look at this again. Coming from the bottom, this house, 24th of February, was on the market for 90 grand. It fell out. It was surveyed at 85. SCT is a surveyor comparable tool. So somebody's trying to buy it. It got down value to 85. Adam picked it up for 85 in May. Did a bit of work. Spent what, 10, 15 grand on it?
I did the typical renovation we do.
Typical renovation, yeah. And then it was
worth 100. I didn't have a kid then though. I did quite a lot, some of the dirty work myself to save some money.
It's almost instantly, between May and December, as soon as the work's done, it's worth 115 grand. Don't forget, 3 months later, 3 months into that, May, June, July, August, there's a tenant in there living there, so you've got the rent coming in. Then it's worth 115 grand, so you get almost all your money back out. But by the time it rolls around to July 2022, it's worth £160,000. So the second bite of the cherry with the second refinance, you get all your money back out and a bit more, and a bit more, and you can go and... So the first time you did the bite of the cherry, you could buy another house again. The second refinance, you've actually got some more money to buy another pot you're creating. You never buy another house yet. You need to buy some more houses. Anyway... How many of those deals will you do?
I've been renovating.
I know.
I've been doing a mini version of what you've been doing.
I know, I'm niggling here. So how many of those would you do? You've got a house that's got none of your own money in. It's generating capital growth more than anything else down in London that is throwing off pots to buy the next houses. It's got rent coming in all the time.
The rent's gone up 3 times. It's gone up by 150 quid.
Yeah. Now, there's something else that I'd like you to think about. If you are insisting that you always want to buy to sell, not buy to rent, buy to sell, You buy a house, you do it up, you flog it on, you make a profit. What Adam's done here, what we've done this nearly 1,000 times now for ourselves and for clients. You buy a house, you do it up, and you keep it to rent, and you go through all the refinance process. You don't see that instant lump of cash, and that's what puts some people off. I want the instant lump of cash.
Yeah.
But you have got that instant lump of cash, you just put it straight to equity. Now, if you do the other way around, you buy, do it up and sell it, yes, you get the instant pot of cash, but where the hell do you want to put that? You want to put it to work in buy-to-let or a nice stable investment. Otherwise, you're going to keep working. To take it out of the property that you've just bought, sold, made a profit, and the profit sat in your bank account, you've got to pay tax on that. And then you've got to go through all the hard work and effort to put it into buy-to-let property. Why not start, if you're an expert at develop to sell, why not start developing to rent? And instead of making that profit and paying tax on it, you make that equity profit and directly invest it on your balance sheet before paying any tax. And then you get all the good benefits of, as well, of the house going up in value, first refinance taking most of your money back out, second refinance throwing off another pot to buy, and all the rent and all the capital appreciation. I mean, Jesus.
I think we've
this is good. This is why we do this.
Right, I think that'll do it for this week.
All right, cheers.
Yeah. Hold on, housekeeping.
Housekeeping. Are we not meant to say this right at the beginning?
Wow. Ding some bells.
Ding some bells, subscribe,
like.
thingy-a-bob, and we really appreciate it. The numbers are growing every week, and yeah, we're going to keep doing it as long as you keep giving us the go-ahead. Any questions you got, put them in the description, and we'll do our best to answer them or answer them in a
video.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye for now. Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.